Emily to QUP's Fashion and Beauty Expert Interview Series. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you virtually.
Yes, you're welcome. Well, to kick us off, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I am a small town girl. I'm from a little town called Jackson, Missouri. It's super close to Cape Girardeau, Missouri. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. We're not known for a lot. We're about an hour and a half south of St. Louis and 2.5 hours north of Memphis. We're about the biggest thing between the two.
Okay.
So I grew up there. I went to college there. My undergraduate and graduate degree, I went to school in Cape Girardeau. And then after I graduated with my master's degree, that is when I moved to St. Louis and I started my first aesthetics job.
Wow.
So yeah, small town roots. How much into this question do you want me to get now?
You go as far as you want to.
What-
Yeah, so I want to know how you made you did undergrad and grad. What did you do that in? What did you study?
So my undergraduate degree, I got my bachelor's of science in nursing. And then I worked on an orthopedic floor in the hospital. So, and I did night shift nursing for about 2.5 years.
Wow.
And so the cases that I would see would be hip replacements, knee replacements, shoulder replacements. And then we got all of the broken hips. And boy, let me tell you, around the holidays when everyone is getting out of their house, that's when for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and that's when all of the broken hips happened. So we were always very busy, but it didn't take long for me to realize that floor nursing is not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I decided to go back to graduate school, and I got my master's degree. I'm a family nurse practitioner, board certified. I graduated with that in 2018, and the very next day after graduation, that's when I moved to St. Louis and I started my big girl job 3 days later. So
wow.
it all happened really quickly. Yeah.
Yes, fast turnaround.
Yeah. So, and that was a little bit of a shock as well, because I've never lived in a big city, and St. Louis isn't like a huge city, but it's much bigger than where I came from. So it was a lot of change for me all at once. And so it went well, but it probably could have gone better.
Well, I think we can all say that about many things in our past.
Right. But yeah, so very thankful for the opportunities though. I'm happy where it's led me. So I worked there for about 2.5 years, and then the pandemic hit, and we were shut down for 3 months almost. And I think in that time, everyone's just sitting around, just going on walks, watching Netflix, like trying to pick up hobbies. Like, what do we do that doesn't require necessarily socializing with people? And I think that's when I started to think, oh my gosh, what am I doing with my life? And I ended up meeting someone that had a connection here in Nashville, and they introduced me. And a few weeks later, I was coming down for an interview, and a few months later, I was moving.
Wow. Well, it just moves for you, doesn't it?
Yeah. It did. So it was pretty crazy.
Yeah. And it's amazing how when things just slow down, like what COVID did, it does give us time to really think and reflect, and how it can change your life.
And to kind of sit in that stillness in that moment. And it's like, okay, what do I do from here? Like what is going to happen with the world, and how does that affect me? And so it was, I'm thankful that it happened. I mean, obviously I don't like everything that happened with COVID and the shutdown, but you know what I mean? The opportunities that it did bring. So
absolutely. Well, we find the positive in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about your specialization, what you do every day.
Yeah. So even though I am a board certified family nurse practitioner, all I do all day long is Botox and fillers, and I absolutely love it. So I'm not technically using my nurse practitioner degree, although at times I absolutely can. I do have that authority. The doctor that I work with, my medical director, she is wonderful. And so she lets me, if I see something, as far as like if someone has an acne flare up or rosacea flare up or something anything that's going on with the skin, if it happens to be something, an area that I'm treating anyways, and I need that to clear up before I can do what I need to do, I can prescribe medications and things like that to kind of help, again, get someone cleared up. Or if it's something like retinol for anti-aging prevention, I'm able to call that in as well. So even though I don't necessarily directly use my degree every day, I still get to use my degree. And I am younger, and people look at me and they're like, how old are you? So I think it gives a little bit more credit to my name and to my youthful look. It makes people feel a little less scared to be in my chair. So it's nice, even though, again, I don't use it much, it's nice having those letters behind my name, because I think it just makes people feel a little bit more confident in your abilities and in what you're doing, especially because the field can be scary. Someone coming in, they've never had a treatment done. It's scary. You don't know what to expect. So I always try to just make people feel really comfortable and confident with everything that we're doing in the chair. So
that's amazing. Yeah. And it's what a benefit to a guest or a client of yours, to be able to go in and know, yes, I'm going for Botox, but I have a person that's looking at my skin, that's looking at, my face, and is aware of, can actually give feedback and maybe even notice something that they haven't noticed.
Yes, sort of that whole picture. I will say it's actually been pretty cool. There have been times where I've caught skin cancers before, and I'm sure a lot of nurses are able to do that. But again, it's nice having that background that I'm like, you need to go to a dermatologist, get this checked out. And so that's happened several times as well. So it's just kind of nice to be able to help people in that sense too. It's not just the Botox and it's not just filler. So.
Absolutely, because they may not have caught it.
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, I think sometimes we see things and maybe it is something on your skin and you don't think anything about it, so you don't go to the doctor.
You see yourself every day. It's easy to be like, brush it off as nothing, and just I'm fine, on with your day kind of thing. So.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So what can a client expect working with you?
So I always like to say that I'm a provider first. And I think that's something in this aesthetic industry. It's really easy to find an office that does Botox and fillers and aesthetic services all day. And it's one in after the other. You kind of filter in. I say it's sort of like the express checkout lane at Walmart, and I never want my patients to feel like they're just a number. They're just another appointment on my book. So again, I'm a provider first. The number for my office, it goes straight to my cell phone. So I'm basically on call, I feel like 24/7. I always tell people, don't be afraid to reach out to me. Like, that is why I'm here. That was one thing at my last office that I worked at in St. Louis. I loved where I was working, who I was working with. But as a provider, I did take a little bit longer with my patients. And I know that wasn't always like preferred, because get people moving, get people in. But again, as a provider, I really like to take my time and explain to people like what we're doing, why we're doing it. Because I feel like if they understand my reasoning, my rationale for why I'm recommending something, like it'll just make sense to them. They'll better have an understanding of like where we're starting, where are we going, just the overall big picture. It's not just this one single treatment. Like, this is the journey that we're starting on together, and this is what you can kind of expect from me. So just knowing that I'm basically always on call. I will give you recommendations based on what I truly, genuinely think will be a good, benefit for the patient. It's not a money maker. You know what I mean? So, and I will say that's one thing I love about working with the doctor that I work with. She is the same way. She does not pressure me to how much are you bringing in? And, you see a lot of businesses, and it's fair. Businesses need to be lucrative and make money, but that's not why we're here. We want to empower women, make women and men as well feel good about themselves. So I'm provider first. I'm here to take care of you.
That's great. I'm sure that your clients appreciate that very much.
Yeah,
yes.
I think so.
I'm sure they feel it. I'm sure they feel it. Yes. So I always ask the question, words of wisdom, and it could be something specific to your industry, or it could just be life. Words of wisdom.
So I would say my words of wisdom: surround yourself with people that add value to your life. And that's not to be like, oh, well, if this person doesn't do something for me, I'm not going to have them around in my life. That's not what I mean. If someone's not adding like a positive influence and a healthy influence, if they are just someone like negative and feeding off of your energy and they just bring you down, what's the point? And sometimes that's your family, and sometimes that's where you have to put up healthy boundaries. I've learned that as I've gotten a little bit older, and that's been super helpful for me. But I think it's surrounding yourself with people that add a positive value and just make you feel good and encourage you to be a better person, to be the best that you can be as well. So just it's good to have positive people around.
Such good advice.
Yeah,
Such good advice. It's incredible what that does for your life
it
when
really,
you're surrounded by positivity and people that believe in you and
yes.
want you to be happy and do well.
Exactly. And I think that for me as well does overflow into my work, because
Hmm.
I feel like I hear so many stories of people not enjoying what they do or where they do it. And you
Hmm.
spend the majority of your waking hours at work, at least most people that work a full-time job. So,
Right.
and I know that's not always going to be the case. Not every day is a sunshiny rainbow day, but for the most
Right.
part, I think it's lovely if you're able to do that. And I think people sometimes lose sight of that.
Yeah, and I think when there's positivity around you when you do have a tough day, it's a lot easier to handle that tough day
Exactly.
because of the type of support you have, for
Exactly.
sure. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
So,
Well, do you have any final thoughts for listeners?
listeners, I guess this is another piece of advice. Be true to you whenever you're coming in to see a provider such as myself. Tell them what bothers you. Don't tell them what someone else is like, oh, you need to get that fixed. Like, I noticed your frown is a little more intense. Just because someone tells you that's what you need to get done, come in and address like what actually bothers you. Don't do it for anyone else. Do it for yourself, if that makes sense. Because I always say too, if it doesn't bother you to start with, if you're only doing it because someone else told you to, it's not going to feel like a good investment. You're not going to see much of a return on it. So just do something that's for you. Don't feel pressured to do anything. That's another thing I always like to tell my patients. There's no pressure in my chair. Again, provider first. So whatever you're comfortable with doing, I'm okay with that. I had another thought and I just lost it.
That's okay. I do that all the time.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
just doing things for yourself, not because someone else told
Mm.
you that that's what you need to do.
Yeah, yeah,
Is-
I love that. Yeah. We at QUP, we say style your light. That's sort
Mhm.
of our tagline, I guess, our motto.
Yeah.
And it is about, being true to you and styling your light, what you have on the inside. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. And
Yes.
that's, I know in this age and generation and with social media, that can be really hard to do, but just do what makes you happy. And I think at the end of the day, everything else is going to reflect that, as cheesy as that may sound. But
Not cheesy at all. Totally true. Yes.
thank
Yes.
you.
Yes. Well, to close us out to our listeners, if you would like to learn more about Emily or book an appointment, you can reach her at qupstyle.com. The link is listed in the comments of this post. And thank you so much, Emily, for being here and sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.